It feels as if games today come out either unfinished or early access more often than they come out as a normal launch day game. And it makes a ton of sense, because from the dev's perspective, why wouldn't I have you pay full price for a game that you already want to play and offer early access, and then charge more as DLCs come out on the actual launch day with these new deluxe editions, pre-order bonuses, and other things that we can get double, triple our money from. And the only real comeback as a fan of a game is going to be that I, as a fan, would not like to be punished for my loyalty by paying multiple times just because I wanted to play your game early. That doesn't make any sense. Obviously, developers and publishers, though they know that they are ultimately harming the consumer, they are going to keep making the decisions that allow them to print money. Because I know that if I had a money printer and it was just running in my basement, I would never turn that off. Unless somebody told me that I couldn't do that and I had to stop. Which makes it a great thing that liking and subscribing is free. You see, but early access was not always this bad. Sometimes indie developers need it to get their feet up and moving. But how did we allow games with big AAA budgets and games from big companies to take early access and unfinished games, post them at full price, and allow us to fan fund their updates, which is something that should be happening after regardless, but the updates to make the game whole, not updates to include something new or update something for free that you didn't have before, but something to make the game what you paid for. We've given them a crutch when in reality they can walk on their 2 feet just fine. But what was early access originally supposed to be? Early access is one of the only ways that indie game studios can get their 2 feet up and walking and put a firm hold on the gaming community. It allows for them who have no money, have to quit their main job to start then coding a new game based off of an idea they had, or maybe even just a simple concept, and move forward with that idea and give a good product that the gaming industry really deserves. 2 of my favorite games were actually originally started like this. Those 2 games are games called Kenshi and Project Zomboid, which are both known for ridiculously long early access times, leaving their fans waiting for years, and sometimes still waiting for those games to come out fully. In the case of Project Zomboid, they only have 4 people working on that game that is still in early access, so they fundamentally need early access as a form of income to keep those 4 people employed. And in the case of Kenshi, development on that game started in 2006 by one person. That one person's named Chris Hunt. Chris Hunt remarks that during the development of Kenshi, he had to work as a full-time game developer as well as a part-time job in security to make funds and ends meet. He continued doing so for the next 7 years as he developed this game, and it wasn't until 2013 when Steam finally added the early access option that he was able to fund a small team and finish development within 5 years. This is how early access is supposed to work in theory. And just like everything that is supposed to work in theory and end up working in theory for indie games, AAA had to come in and ruin everything. Cyberpunk 2077, Halo Infinite, Battlefield 2042. These are 3 big examples of games being released entirely unfinished, but still having to pay full price. In the case of Halo Infinite, of course, you didn't have to pay for the multiplayer. But when multiplayer releases well before the campaign releases, and when the campaign does release, it's still at full price when it's half of a game, it just doesn't make sense. You even know it's really bad when my father, who only plays Halo and boycotts all other games, chose to not partake in Halo Infinite. Souring a superfan is the exact thing you don't want to do as a AAA game studio, because now they're not going to buy anything that you create, because the hurt lingers more with people who you are loyal to. There could be 5 indie early access games that pop up in the next week, and half of them could fail. But at least I know that something was trying to be done, versus a AAA game when I'm buying full price for what I believe to be a finished product. I know you have the money and the developers and the publishers and the marketing to make this game good. Why aren't you? Why are you releasing something unfinished? It's not a matter of supporting your local mom and pop shop when it becomes a AAA studio. That is a millionaire that is being supported by a thousandaire in myself. Brody, you're holding me to a double standard here. These indie game companies are making small games. They don't cost nearly as much as a AAA game does. So whenever I ask you to invest just a little bit of capital into my game so I can then make money and make a game that you love, why are you complaining? Especially when the end product ends up being something that you eventually love. You love Cyberpunk, you love Skyrim. I made those, not the little guy. Sometimes double standards are not just good, but they're needed. I get the most enjoyment ever from a single human being from my baby daughter. But I don't expect her to start getting a job, eating solid food, and paying rent. She can do whatever she's gonna do on a relatively small budget. So why are you expecting me to pay your budget that you set? I would rather less things to do at launch and less graphics than a game that has better graphics, more things to do, and isn't finished. If you're a child, close your ears, because sometimes lying and double standards are a good thing. You can't hold everybody you walk through life with at the same standard. And in that same sense, you can hold the AAA titles at a higher standard than those of indie games. They are just learning how to walk, and AAA titles are driving cars. They should know not to make these little mistakes that indie games do. And they have the budgets to recoup from those mistakes when they do make them. Now, I'm gonna take you back to how launch days used to feel. I was 7 years old. My older brothers and dad were the most excited they could have been because there was a new Halo coming out. One that was supposed to be different than any other Halo. Halo Reach. They all had pre-ordered it, ready to hook up their LAN parties and go to ham on this game. It was something that called for celebration. You called in on work. You made sure that you were clear on your schedule for the next couple of days as you played this amazing game. And yes, there's obviously launch bugs and server issues that happen with a lot of games. That's to be expected when you have a large inrush of people. But it was finished. Growing up, I remember multiple stories exactly like this one, where somebody that I knew went to a game store and camped out overnight to make sure that they were able to get the game that they wanted on launch day. But these stories don't exist anymore. Partially because there's no physical games, which, love it or hate it, it's here to stay. But also because players can't make an investment and call off of work for the next couple of days just because a new game came out. They have to wait a couple days to even get hands-on and play it after their favorite content creator has reviewed it. Early access and unfinished AAA products has entirely ruined that launch celebration. Because now, whenever a game finally comes out, it's just an update. It's just another unfinished product. It's just another game that I played 3 months ago and hated and didn't give another chance because it was already in early access. And unfortunately, even though there's so many success stories with early access, eventually people just stop buying into early access games when they get burnt. It's not in a normal gamer's budget to buy an early access game. And if they do buy one, it's gotta be good, and they're not gonna buy it until a bunch of people recommend it to them. But who's gonna recommend it if no one's buying? This entirely undermines the point of early access, because if nobody buys the game to get it up and running and gain traction because it sucks, because it's still in development, well, your game is just going to be dead in the water, and the people that are actually buying it are just going to be left holding a bag. Unfortunately, there's also not really a solve for determining which early access game is actually worth being put on Steam and which one isn't, because early access is for small companies. And if a small company just has a tiny concept that they'd like to post on Steam, who is Steam to say, no, you can't do that? But the validity of other early access games will get questioned when a new early access game shows up every 5 seconds. The early access problem is going to continue to degrade the gaming industry as a whole. And there's not really a fix for this. As long as AAA companies release unfinished products and indie games take advantage of a tool that has historically worked, it's not going to go away. Launch days are not going to feel special, and unfortunately, full releases are never going to be the same. It really sucks to see the old way of doing things go away, but just because something changes doesn't mean it's all bad. Early access, like I said, has caused so many amazing games to be created by indie game studios, and the times it's worked has done a lot of good for the gaming industry as a whole. But the next time you go and look at an early access game that's been that way for the last 10 years, maybe do a little bit of extra resource rather than immediately investing in it. because having all these early access games flooding the market in the end is going to hurt the market overall. Today's Bible verse of the day comes from Psalms 23:5 in the NIV version. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. If you'd ever like to talk about Jesus more, join my Discord down below and we can talk about that and other nerdy stuff. Like, sub, love Jesus, bye.